Professors and graduate institutions across America are some of our most noble professionals, shepherding the next generation to a world that pursues truth, integrity, and a better tomorrow. Yes, shepherds, frontline heroes even. No, we're not. We're a bunch of expensive whores preying on the hopes and dreams of the middle class. Drew, play that music. Let's light this bitch we call a candle. This is No Mercy, No Malice. I'm Scott Galloway. Let's start with the rant, or as I like to call it, is that guy on meth? Maybe. Today, we're talking about higher education and how COVID-19 may be the long overdue fist of stone that meets the chin higher education has been sticking out for the last several decades. Here's a look at how colleges have been squeezing students for 30 years. First, tuition costs have exploded 1,400% since 1978. Think about that. Tuition costs of 15x in the last 40 years. When I attended the High School of Business at Berkeley for my MBA, the total tuition for both years was $4,000, and the starting salary post-MBA was approximately $100,000. Today, tuition is $100,000, and the average starting salary is approximately $140,000. So the ratio of tuition to salary has dropped from 25x to 1.4x. Another ratio, my first house in Potrero Hill, San Francisco, cost $280,000. The same house today would cost $1.4 million. So the cost of a starter house in San Francisco has risen from 2.8 times my starting salary to 10 times the starting salary of today's graduate. In addition, colleges have become luxury brands as universities are adopting a strategy of artificial scarcity to create irrational margins. We academics are drunk on this exclusivity. When the head of Harvard admissions says he could double the freshman class without sacrificing any quality, the only question is, with a $40 billion endowment, why wouldn't you, boss? The answer is disturbingly simple. University leadership and academics no longer aspire to be the public servants of yesterday, but the luxury brands of tomorrow. Gucci and Ferrari don't turn away 90+% of their potential customers, yet Harvard and Stanford do. No businesses have gross margins like higher education. By the way, I am part of the problem. This is a man in the mirror test. Think about it. I have 170 students enrolled for fall 2020 brand strategy, where we charge second-year MBAs $7,000 each to hear this for 12 nights for about 2 hours and 40 minutes. Ad-supported linear television, you can pay $7,000 or you can be pelted with ads on underwear and glasses. I think TV's making a comeback. I think it's making a comeback. Anyways, back to Stern. That translates to, no joke, $100,000 per class. That's $100,000 transferred from young people and middle-class households every week to NYU every time I teach a class. Granted, you might think the dog lives kind of large, and he does, but it's not because of what NYU pays me. My agent takes a 97% commission, meaning the gross margin on the mother of all luxury goods is 90+%. This all adds up to one thing: crushing student debt that exacerbates inequality and has never been greater. Relative to Gen X, millennials took out more student loans, larger student loans, and defaulted on those loans more frequently. Student debt now sets at $1.5 trillion. The consequences of debt-financed higher education don't fall equally on Americans either. If you come from one of the top 1% income-earning households, you're 77 times more likely to go to an elite college. That's right, the Ivy League isn't about upward mobility or public service. It's finishing school for the children of rich people. So rich kids get the Ferraris of degrees and the highest paying jobs. Middle-class kids get beaten up Honda Civics at the same price as the cartel of higher ed means Pepperdine costs the same as UCLA. But they still need to make Bugatti-like payments despite driving a beat-up Toyota. And then COVID-19. COVID-19 is the meteor about to rock the academic world. In a word, higher education is about to suffer the mother of all implosions. How does this play out? A marginal accounting professor is the butt of jokes in the dorms or on the quad. On Zoom, she's intolerable. 74% of students are dissatisfied with online courses, and 1 in 6 freshmen are considering deferring this fall. Colleges will not be able to convince students or their parents to pay tuition for a marginal Zoom class. So what should we do? 4 things. 1, Let's turn these luxury brand elite universities back into places where unremarkable kids have the chance at a remarkable future. Let's provide greater funding for public land-grant universities such as the University of California and University of Texas systems who have not lost the script and realize we're public servants. By the way, Berkeley will graduate more kids from low-income households this year than the entire Ivy League combined. Secondly, let's stop bankrolling institutions that are sitting on massive endowments. If they don't grow their freshman seats at a pace greater than population growth, they are not nonprofits, but luxury brands whose return on multi-billion-dollar endowments should be taxed. Third, we need deans and chancellors to eliminate one of the most expensive and corrupt guilds in American history, tenure. They're going to have to be class traders, but this is overdue. And four, finally, let's make college more affordable for millions of middle and lower income kids who join a volunteer service organization. In sum, there's never been a better time in America to be remarkable. However, there's likely never been a worse time to be unremarkable. The cruel truth is 90% of our children are not in the top 1%. I can prove this mathematically. The measure of a society isn't the opportunities afforded the remarkable. That makes for good movies and good CNBC profiles. It makes for a terrible society. How many unremarkable kids are given the opportunities to be remarkable like my generation? Now on to our guest lecturer for the week, Heather McDonald. She's a New York Times bestselling author and a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, an economically focused think tank. Heather, you have called colleges a Ponzi scheme. What do you mean by that? Say more.
Well, they've been taking on students who have no qualifications really to be in college in order to fuel this massive expansion of the bureaucracy, which creates more demand on tuition dollars, which creates the need to bring in more students who really have no place in college.
Let's go back to this notion that kids aren't ready for college. There's a line of thinking that school administrators have become unwitting mental health counselors as opposed to educators because kids are being dumped at school unprepared. What do you think of the idea of a gap year or some sort of service organization that gives kids more of a time to marinate before they show up at college?
I'd go much further than that, Scott. I think we have to combat this elitist, snobby notion that the only way that you can lead a meaningful, productive life is to get a college degree. That is so self-centered on the part of the professional elites that work in the knowledge business. In fact, many people would be better served and would rather, if they weren't being pushed by this narrative that the only way to succeed in life is to go to college, they would be much better served and prefer to learn a trade. You mentioned the land grants, you mentioned the University of California system. No, Scott, they are just as bad. University of Berkeley.
That kills me, Heather. Don't say that. That kills me.
No, you got to know the truth. I know we all want to have some place we can dream about that is still serious.
And I got to be honest, Heather, I don't agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I think it's important that campuses and the media bring people on to debate such that we can craft better solutions. And I appreciate the courage you're demonstrating by going out there with opinions, quite frankly, that are politically incorrect. Best of luck to you.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.
Coming up next, my winners and losers, plus my prediction and a drive-by fruiting from NBC News business reporter and MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle.
Jeff Bezos, I think he's going to do what we have never seen a CEO do before. I think he's going to crush it when he testifies, right? I get it. He's an easy target. He makes, I don't know, a gajillion dollars. But here's the thing about Bezos.
That's all ahead on No Mercy, No Malice. I'm Scott Galloway. What a thrill! I'm NYU Professor Scott Galloway. No, I'm not. I'm the dog. Why does a grown man call himself the dog? Because it brings me joy. It hits me here. If it hit me here, it hit a bunch of Chipotle, Cialis, and Zacapa, which, by the way, is a big basket of magic, but it hits me here. I'm the dog. Let's jump into winners and losers. Why do I get to be the arbiter of who wins and loses? Because it's my show. It's my show for another 3 episodes. Mine. A winner, government-funded medical research. Remdesivir, the new hope for COVID-19 patients, has been resurrected. The FDA has approved emergency use after a trial improved COVID recovery times by almost 30%. Dr. Fauci said that while it's not a knockout drug, it's a great first step. Again, this drug would not be here had it not been for government-funded research. A winner, Brian Chesky's You're Fired letter. Besides providing various protections and benefits for employees, including healthcare, equity, mental health, and gifting laptops, Chesky made two remarks that stood out. One, he's thankful for everybody at Airbnb. And two, he reminds his employees that he has a deep feeling of love for all of them. Whether that's true or not, it actually came across as genuine, and it was a nice touch. Our original tagline was, travel like a human, says Chesky. The human part was always more important than the travel part. What we are about is belonging, and at the center of belonging is love. All right, then. A loser, PPP, which is now bailing out religious institutions. So much for separation of church and state. Winner or loser, Bezos testifying before Congress. I think we need a little bit of help. I think we need a skosh of assistance here. Who would be the ideal guest to add a little bit of fire to No Mercy, No Malice? For help on this, we bring in senior business correspondent at NBC News and MSNBC anchor Stephanie Ruhle for our second Drive-By Fruiting. Welcome, Stephanie.
Drive-by fruiting. Thank you. Thank you. Jeff Bezos, I think he's going to do what we have never seen a CEO do before. I think he's going to crush it when he testifies, right? I get it. They want to bring Jeff Bezos in. He's an easy target. He makes, I don't know, $1 gajillion. And so let's say, let's bring him in. We don't like the way his business is operating. But here's the thing about Bezos. He is one of the few CEOs who truly gives no Fs, but not in a reckless way. He does his homework. He's going to show up completely prepared. A story that I think was absolutely underreported was Bezos 2 weeks ago saying to his investors in the letter, take a back seat. There are no CEOs that say to investors, take a back seat. By doing that, he's saying, here's what's best for my company, my employees, my customers, and yes, the company has problems. Loads of companies do. But by saying that to investors, to me, that's the biggest change we could possibly see to the positive in terms of capitalism, as opposed to every other CEO out there who in the last 20 years has been forced to change their entire business model. So every quarter they put on a push-up bra and a pair of Spanx and dance for Wall Street analysts so they can pretty up their earnings.
Bezos is saying, a bad thing. Oh my God.
But it is a bad thing. How can anyone make a good long-term decision when you've got to dance every quarter?
Agreed. So let's talk about another winner and loser in the world of e-commerce or retail. Talk to us about the CEO of Kroger.
All right. This one blows my mind. I get it. Grocery stores are crushing it right now. They should be. We're all home and we can't go out to eat. But we just learned on Friday that what Kroger is doing in 6 days from now is discontinuing what they created, which was hero pay. They're paying their employees that work in the stores, the one that put their lives at risk, an extra $2 an hour. Well, they've decided hero pay is all set. We're going to go back to normal pay. This is what's mind-blowing to me. We are putting our labor force at risk, okay? They're most likely taking public transportation to go and stock shelves so you and me can have vegetables and toilet paper. And what did the company do? They said, we're going to recognize this, not by giving you shares, not by giving you an equity upside, but we're giving you an extra $2 an hour. And now they've decided that's long enough. Well, the Kroger CEO, who last year was paid $12 million, I'm going to guess is going to get paid even more than that because he's having a hero year in terms of profitability. It's unfathomable to me how they can then decide, because those grocery store workers don't have another option where they can find another place to go to work, let's just pay them less because we can. You know what? You're right, Kroger. You can pay them less, and there's a good chance they won't quit. But why are you? When you make the world worse off, when you make your employees worse off, you're going to hurt everyone, including yourselves. To me, it's one of the biggest no's that makes no sense.
Vegetables and toilet paper. I used one of those things. Anyways, PPP, you and I have had some offline conversations. Winner or loser? How are we doing so far with the PPP program?
Listen, the idea of this program was good. Let's not have everyone on unemployment. Let's figure out a way how to pay people through the payroll system so they keep their jobs. Unfortunately, the implementation has been an absolute disaster. You've got lawmakers crowing, why are big companies taking the money? Why are public companies taking the money? We're going to come get you. We're going to come get you? Why did you make the rules this way? This is what the outcome is going to be. Yes, you're going to have some fraud over in the edges, but at the end of the day, the way the American people look at taxes, for example, we say, what is available to us? And we go and we take it. And we want to pay the government the least amount possible. We don't have a moral conversation of should we do it. Now we should, but we don't. So the net result was anybody and their brother who had a business with less than 500 people applied and got the money. And then the government said, this is wrong. They shouldn't have done that. The government needs to change the rules. The government is mad about how the banks handled it. How did you think the banks were going to handle it?
So millions of viewers on MSNBC, tens of millions on NBC News, dozens and dozens on Vice. You're welcome. You're welcome to the big platform, Stephanie. What a moment for you. What a moment for you. Okay, quick question. Rapid fire. Newsom, Cuomo. Could it happen? Could we replace Biden?
I think in a lot of Democrats' dreams, will it happen? Unlikely. Could Joe Biden put them in positions where they have a lot of influence and power? Absolutely. The thing to look for is Joe Biden's convening power. Who does he create as his SWAT team? Who's his cabinet?
That's right. So speaking of his cabinet, your bet, Vice President?
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris? You don't think it's Stacey Abrams or Elizabeth Warren? You think Kamala for the win?
Kamala VP, Elizabeth Warren, Treasury Secretary. And if she is, let me tell you, bankers are scared.
Yeah, that's going to be rough. That's going to be rough. So filming from home, any observations coming out of this crisis as a business person, as a mother, as a wife, as a citizen? What are the one or two things you're going to take away from this pandemic? How is your life going to change?
Don't sweat the small stuff. The content is the most important thing, not the show.
It's really interesting you're saying that. It is distilling all these late night shows. You see it distilling down to the real talent without the studio, without the live audiences. Stephanie Ruhle, a gangster. Thank you for being so generous with me professionally, personally, and thank you for being here. And now on to our predictions. Apple will acquire Sonos, or another big tech firm will acquire the smart speaker firm. One of the things coming out of COVID-19 is our reallocation of human capital, specifically how much time we spend at home, is dramatically increasing, which will increase the level of capital and attention that will focus on the home. What is the best brand, or the best brand relative to its market cap of about $1.2 billion? Think about this. Sonos is already in 10 million homes. And guess what? Those 10 million homes probably command 30 to 40% of all discretionary income, and has registered a 32% increase in listening hours and almost a 50% increase just in April alone. Somebody is going to show up and buy this thing with just the sweat off their brow. If it's not Apple, it's going to be Google. It could be Samsung or another technology firm. But look for Sonos to be taken out within the next 90 days. Don't think about touching that remote. Actually, I want you to touch whatever you want to touch. If you do, though, you'll miss my office hours. Questions from the audience, plus my tribute to the late, great Roy Horn. This is No Mercy, No Malice. Okay, office hours. We have reopened. Are we reopened too early? I don't know. Let's find out. Ask the first question, please.
My name is Jeff Snow. I'm from Massachusetts. I'm a firefighter, and I have 4 kids, a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So my wife and I are looking for ways to save for college for the kids, and thought maybe you'd have some good advice for us.
First off, thanks, Jeff, and thanks for your good work. So this is an easy one, Jeff. Move to Canada. Just kidding. Assuming you're going to stay in the United States, there is no easy answer here. I think there's a couple of things that you want to think about. One, start saving now. Compound interest is incredibly powerful. 2, try and take advantage of anything, obviously, the state or the city that you work for in terms of matching funds. Look at tax advantage savings programs, whether it's CSA or 529 programs. I would also, just for your own and your wife's own mental health, I would enlist, once your kids get to the age of about 12 or 13, their help in this. Be fairly transparent about the extraordinary costs here, such that they get motivated and they have a vested interest in saving their own money, and hopefully get them into as many schools as you can, such that you can play them off against each other. Thanks again for your good work. Next question.
Hi, Professor Galloway. My name's Devin, and this is my husband, Jimmy.
We recently just got settled in our careers, and we're wondering, is it better to work on paying off debt, start investing, or start saving for a down payment for a house?
What is the interest rate on your debt? If it's a high interest rate, you want to focus on paying down that debt. In terms of investing in a house, I would wait 6 to 18 months, as real estate tends to have a lag on the way down. But right now we are in a kind of a, if you will, a standoff where anyone who owns a house, their property has probably gone down. They just don't want to acknowledge it. But buying a home is a fantastic way for forced savings. Again, it all comes down to how expensive that debt is you have. Thanks, Devin and Jimmy. Next question.
Hi, Professor Galloway. I'm Andrew from Los Angeles. I'm a big fan of yours. I was wondering what your thoughts are on how social distancing is going to change the expectations of workers and what kind of skills they should have to adapt to the new realities we're all facing.
Wow, that's a thoughtful question, Andrew from Los Angeles. I would say that one, to bring a certain level of optimism and cooperation and be a problem solver. Don't be the guy or gal in the back of the meeting rolling your eyes. Be the guy or gal that comes up with new solutions, because the best ideas come from the bottom up. Trying to be a part of the solution, not the problem. That's who makes it into senior management, is the people that are there to answer problems instead of highlight them. Thanks for the great questions. Please submit more. We love hearing from you. And finally, we leave you with footage from the inimitable Siegfried and Roy. Roy Horn passed away last week. This isn't a story of a mauling or COVID-19. This is a story of a boy born in war-torn Germany that found his way to Las Vegas, where he entertained tens of millions of people by making parrots and panthers and elephants disappear. This is a story of what a wonderful country the United States is. This is a story of a wonderful partnership, domestic and professional, that spanned decades. This is a story of the courage of a man living the life he wanted to live. Right on, brother, right on. Rest in peace. We'll see you next week. Okay, let's pretend we like each other. Elbow bump. Okay, great. Thanks, brother. Well done. Well done.